Okay, it's Thursday night, the 12th of October. It's almost 8 o'clock. I'm just going to do a quick run through of settings with that 10 by nearly edge-on galaxy NGC7650 in Pegasus. Let's start running up the exposure time. For flood, we're starting to see stars. And that should basically be a 3-inch scope, roughly. 8 would be like 4.5 inch scope. 16 is a 6-inch scope. However, we're operating at 42 decibels, so it could be a little better than that. Usually I run through these at 36. I don't want to bother with that this evening. See if we're getting any sense of a galactic presence yet. Takes a while to formulate the image. One thing I'm noticing is the screen looks a little flatter when I'm flashing light up on the screen based on the manual setup shutter in AGC Max. I have a way of adjusting the camera to the brightness, and I think I'm going to play with that a little bit too. 32. This is a 10th magnitude galaxy, but fairly large, 10 by 1 arc minutes. I'll give the spec on that in a little bit. I just want to start seeing a galaxy on the screen. Can't really tell from my viewing position. 64. Now we're up to standard setting. Should be easily visible on the screen unless we have high thin clouds. Oh yeah, I think I see it there. I'll give you the data on it. It was part of the last series of galaxies, mostly galaxies, in the 7600 to 7649 series. As it forms. It's not culminating yet, but it's in the sky's middle third because it's so far north. Oh yeah, very visible. Nice shaft of light. NGC7650 galaxy in Andromeda. Magnitude 11.3, 10 by 1.9 arc minutes, which means average surface brightness is going to be something like 3 magnitudes greater. We'll call it magnitude 13 average surface brightness. It's a spiral of a large bar, lowercase bc. A mere 29 million light years distant, which means it's probably something around 80,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus almost 41 degrees, and it begins at right ascension 2322. So there is our little scan through, and I like the view of that galaxy. Once again, NGC 7640, I performed a little experiment with setting up the brightness of the screen based on the fact that there were very bright text on the screen. I tried to get the camera to set its exposure time for each frame based on that really bright region. Let's see how it plays out tonight later on as we go through our 7650 to 7699 series of the evening. Probably have to wait an hour for that. Very chilly. Probably a good night to wear at least socks on my feet. Alright. Austin. On the off chance that the first in the NGC 7650 series was in the middle third of the sky, even though it's a bit early in the evening for culmination, I went ahead and went to NGC 7650, but it was in toucan, too low. And the next in the sequence was NGC 7651, Galaxy in Pegasus, plus 14 degrees declination. It's also known as NGC 7644, so we'll be seeing this one again. Actually, we've seen it already. It's magnitude 15.7 by 0.5 arc minute lenticular spiral. The beauty of it is 562 million light years distant. And based on what little redshift looking investigation I've done so far in galaxies, this should be something like 0.5% shift in the, don't quote me on it, in the redshift given that distance of over 500 million light years. So this is our first view, and I'll continue going a little bit early as long as they're far north studies for us to image for the evening. And here's another galaxy in Pegasus, NGC7650-73, magnitude 12.7, 1.6 by 1.5 face-on spiral with a lowercase b, 192 million light years distant. And it's at plus 15 degrees, and it's quite visible right in the middle of the screen since I synchronized previously to NGC 7651 in the same part of the sky. NGC 7656 is a galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 13.3. However, it's minus 19 degrees. We're not getting the best look. Maybe we'll pick this one up later on. It's magnitude 13.3, 1.2 by 1.1. It's a lenticular spiral, 339 million light years distant at minus, as I mentioned, 19 degrees. And we're at 23 degrees, 24 minutes, right ascension. I'm going to go ahead and pick up a few more because I can really see that on the screen. NGC 7659 is another galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 14.8 by 0.3. So, oblitely presented spiral with a lowercase a. It's 180 million light years distant, and it's at plus 14 degrees in declination. NGC 7660 is a galaxy in Pegasus, once again, plus 27 degrees. Brightish, magnitude 12.7, more or less elliptical, 1.4 by 1.1 arc minutes in size, 260 million light years distant, means it's probably somewhere around 120,000 light years in diameter. It's at, as I mentioned, 27 degrees in declination. And I want to point out, this is in a nice middle third of the sky, so the view we're getting quite right now is fine. And once again, the one that was down in Aquarius, however, we may have to reproduce later on. NGC 7662 is a planetary in Andromeda. Pretty well known one. I don't remember the name, the epithet was given to it. It's magnitude 8.6, but smallish, 17 by 14 arc seconds. Central star is magnitude 14, 6,400 light years distant. And this is a good reason to have gotten an early start. It's at plus 42.5 degrees. What I really should do on this one is run the settings down to see if we can't, well, actually image this one reasonably well. It's way too bright, that setting for. I've discovered that most planetary nebulas, especially the ones that are in the 10th magnitude range, really require some adept use of the shutter flood setting in order to be able to get some kind of a view. Ideally, we would be able to see the central star. I have seen this planetary before in a 6-inch telescope. It actually gives quite a fine view. And typically what you do is you run the magnification way up. I think I viewed it once at about 400x on a Cassegrain Maxitov telescope. And I was able to actually feel quite satisfied with the quality of the view. Here we are at the 3-inch setting. See, it finally did kind of start looking pretty decent at 3 inches. There's the 3-inch setting, and that's pretty much a 2-inch scope right there. Now remember, a 2-inch scope at 75x, you're really pushing the exit pupil down seriously low. So you're going to start seeing floaters in your eye and everything else. But there's the view at a variety of settings. It'll take some review to determine which one might have shown the central star. Okay, we've dropped further south again. This is a very faint galaxy, magnitude 15.9. It's at minus almost 5 degrees. NGC 7663 is a galaxy in Aquarius. As I said, magnitude 15.9, 0.7 by 0.3 arc minutes, 254 million light years distant. And we haven't gotten to 23.5 degrees yet, nor do I really expect to in the course of the evening. NGC 7664 is a galaxy in Pegasus. We should be seeing some structure on this. It's at plus 25 degrees. Magnitude 12.7, 2.6 by 1.5 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase c. 160 million light years distant. And on these lowercase things, I always thought it would be very cool if they would just put lowercase, like C's for core, as being a smaller core and uppercase, but I'm not sure that's the way it played out. I would have to investigate more. I just don't want to have to memorize a bunch of arbitrary values and symbols. NGC 7664. NGC 7665 is a galaxy minus almost 10 degrees in Aquarius, magnitude 13. Pretty obvious on the screen though. 0.8 by 0.8 arc minutes. It's a spiral with a lowercase m. 213 million light years distant. And that is our look. Lowercase m. A P I know is peculiar, but m? NGC 7667, palindrome. Galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14, 1.6 by 1.1. Did I do this one already? No, it's also another spiral lowercase m, 121 million light years distant. And it's at minus, not even, it's right on the celestial equator, effectively. Lowercase m again. Be interesting to speculate once you see the images. I just went through a spate of 3 NGC numbers assigned. They're all nothings, and nothings cannot come out for about almost a quarter of the entire catalog, either stars or nothings, but they are definitely not nebulae in clusters. This is NGC 7671, Galaxy in Pegasus, brightish, 12.8 magnitude, 1.4 by 0.8, lenticular spiral, 181 million light years distant, and it is plus 13 degrees in declination. NGC 7671 has a neighboring galaxy, Neria Click, Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.9, 0.8 by 0.6 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase b, 182 million light years distant, and like before, it's about 12.5 degrees in declination. Some 10 degrees further north to NGC 7673, another galaxy in Pegasus, brightish, magnitude 12.8, face on 1.3 by 1.2. It's a spiral with a lowercase c and a p for peculiar. 154 million light years distant, plus 23.5 degrees. When you find the galaxy, see if there isn't a little weird curl to it or a bright region that can't be accounted for. That's a typical peculiarity. NGC 7674, another galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13.2, 1.1 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a large bar and lowercase bc. 390 million light years distant, making this a little larger than our own Milky Way. It's at plus almost 9 degrees, and we still haven't crossed 2330 in right ascension. NGC 7674 has a neighbor, 74A, Galaxy in Pegasus, plus almost 9 degrees. Magnitude 16.1. Should be able to see this one though. 0.3 by 0.3 arc minutes. In a good position in the sky, a spiral with lowercase a. 390 million light years distant, which means it's pretty dwarfish. Probably somewhere around 40,000 light years in diameter. And we still haven't crossed 2330 in right ascension. NGC 7675 is pretty close to 7674 NA. Galaxy in Pegasus, faintish, magnitude 14.9, 0.6 by 0.4 football-shaped galaxy. It's a lenticular spiral with a bar. 385 million light years distant, and once again almost plus 9 degrees in declination. We headed further north to NGC 7677, another galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.2, 1.6 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a bar and a lowercase bc, 161 million light years distant, puts it about the size of our own Milky Way, 100,000 light years, plus 23.5 degrees. Here's a nice one, NGC 7678, a galaxy in Pegasus, well placed, at plus 22.5 degrees. Magnitude 11.8, 2.5 by 1.7 arc minutes, spiral with a bar. Look for that bar at its core. 160 million light years distant, puts it probably at about 120 to 130,000 light years in diameter, plus 22.5 degrees. very nice look, from what I can tell. NGC7679 is another galaxy in Pisces, but it's above the celestial equator, 3.5 degrees. Magnitude 12.9, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes. Spiral, lenticular type O with a bar, 231 million light years distant, probably about 80 to 90,000 light years in diameter. 23, 28 in right ascension. NGC 7680, another galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 12.6, face on 1.8 by 1.8, lenticular spiral class O, 238.5 million light years distant, puts it pretty much up there at about 150,000 light years with Messier 31, the great Andromeda galaxy. It's at plus 32.5 degrees in declination. We're getting pretty close to tipping the scales into our 2330 plus. NGC 7681, another galaxy in Pegasus at plus 17 degrees declination, magnitude 13.7, 1.8 by 1.5 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 321 million light years distance, probably larger than the great Andromeda galaxy, maybe somewhere around 180,000 light years. It's at plus 17 degrees in declination. NGC 7682, galaxy in Pisces, but it's above the celestial equator at 3.5 degrees. Gives a nice smudgy look. It's a 13th magnitude, 0.1 magnitude galaxy, almost face on, 1.2 by 1.1. Look for a bar. It's a spiral with a capital B and a lowercase ab, 231 million light years distant, and it's at 23 and 29 minutes right ascension. So we are getting close to tripping over the second half of hour 23. Here's a nicely placed NGC 7683 galaxy in Pisces, brightish, magnitude 12.5, face on 1.9 by 0.9. So it's obliquely presented spiral, the lenticular class, 168 million light years distant, puts it about 110,000 light years across, plus 11.5 degrees in declination. Okay, we just stepped over the right ascension line of 23 hours and 30 minutes, and in this case 32 seconds, and plus almost 5 degrees in declination. To find NGC 7684 galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.6, 1.5 by 0.4 arc minutes. We should see some sense of extension on this baby. It's a spiral with a lowercase a, 233 million light years distant, means it's probably about 110,000 light years in diameter. Okay, we're getting some partial blockage on this one because it's very far north, but we wouldn't have caught it at all if we hadn't started a bit earlier. This is NGC 7686, and don't look for a galaxy here. It's an open cluster in Andromeda, brightish, magnitude 5.6, 15 arc minutes in size, with 20 stars, the brightest of which are magnitude 6.2. This gives us a chance to revisit our open cluster classifications. We haven't seen them for a while. It's a class Roman numeral 4, IV1. And 4 typically means that the stars are pretty widely spaced. And 1 means they're roughly of all the same brightness, except for that one bright one that's magnitude 6.2, which is probably the progenitor star. This is at plus 49 degrees, and as you know, we're already into right ascension 2330. It's nice to have seen it with some little blockage of the aperture of the scope. Okay, looking at the screen, I'd say this next galaxy is somewhere around magnitude 15. It's right in the middle of the screen. The tracking has been very good tonight. I may be wrong. Look at this. It seems to be developing some wings. It's NGC 7687 galaxy in Pisces, and it has grown a little bit since I spoke. Magnitude 13.4, 1.3 by 1 arc minute, spiral of the lenticular class, 210 million light years distant, plus 3.5 degrees. And that is why we need to watch the galaxies develop. It usually takes about 20 to 30 seconds to get a full exposure of 6 passes at 128 flood and 42 decibels. I know this one's faint because I took a quick view of the magnitude. This is NGC 7688 galaxy in Pegasus. It's at plus 21.5 degrees. It's magnitude 15.4. smallish, 0.4 by 0.3 arc minutes, 504 million light years distant, puts it at about 70 to 75,000 light years in diameter. We're now at 2331 in terms of right ascension. NGC 7691, a galaxy in Pegasus. Now, every time you cross the lower than 13 line, they get interesting, don't they? Magnitude 12.9, 2.1 by 1.6 arc minutes, spiral with a bar in lowercase bc. Look for a ring. We should be able to make it out. 184 million light years distant, plus almost 16 degrees in declination. Well, this one looks like another fainty to my eye, maybe magnitude 14.5. Let's see. Oh, magnitude 15. NGC 7692, galaxy in Aquarius. Magnitude 15, smallish, 0.5 by 0.4 arc minutes. It is an irregular galaxy, IR. 235 million light years distant. It's minus 5.5 degrees into Aquarius. And typically, irregular galaxies are galaxies that are kind of distorted in some way. And I would think most of them are distorted because they recently ate another galaxy. And they're undergoing some kind of tidal forces as they attempt to make sense of themselves. I'm estimating this galaxy to be in the 14th magnitude range. Let's take a look. NGC 7693, galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 13.4, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes, football-shaped spiral with a lowercase a, 116 million light years distant. Puts it probably somewhere around 50,000 light years in diameter. It's at minus 1 degrees. We're now at 233310 right ascension. Looking at the screen, we might have a pair of galaxies up there, fairly proximal. NGC 7694 would be the one closer to the center. The tracking has been very good tonight in terms of go-to. Galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14, 1.6 by 0.9. It's another irregular, but this one's 102 million light years distant and is a bit larger. And it's minus almost 3 degrees in terms of declination. NGC 7695 was very close to 7694. This may be the other galaxy we saw, but it's faint. Magnitude 15.9, 0.6 by 0.3 spiral, lenticular spiral. A mere 99 million light years distant. Puts it probably somewhere around 30,000 light years in diameter. It's at minus 2 and 43, just like our last study. NGC 7696, another galaxy in Pisces, but further north, almost plus 5 degrees. Magnitude 14.8, 0.3 by 0.5 by 0.3 arc minutes. It's just classified as a spiral, 253 million light years distant. Occurs to me it might be fun where we see these designations that simply say spiral to go on to something like the Sky Live, or go on the internet and search them out and see what you might think a particular galaxy is in terms of classification. Look for things like the core of the galaxy being distended into a bar. Look for things like one of the spiral arms completely circumnavigating, which would be considered a ring. Look for how many spiral arms they are, how large or spindly or broad they are, or whether there's luminosity all around the core, which would give you a sense of a lenticular. And look for a sense if a galaxy is elliptical, that the brightness fades slowly off to the perimeter. Those are things to look for. You can enjoy doing that kind of research on your own. NGC 7698, we're wrapping it up soon. Galaxy in Pegasus. We're up at 25 degrees in declination. This is one of those marginally bright galaxies at magnitude 13.3, but it's smallish, 1 by 0.8 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral, so it shouldn't have distinct spiral arms, 319 million light years distant, pretty close to being the same size as the Milky Way. It's at 23 hours, 34 minutes, and 1 second. NGC 7699 is our last entry for the evening. It's a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 15.9, 0.6 by 0.3 arc-minute spiral with lowercase a, 243 million light years distant, puts it at probably around 60,000 light years in diameter. It's at -2, almost 3 degrees. I'm seeing a number of other galaxies up there. I'm not sure if they're lining up well. The scope ran off on me when I went to this, and that occasionally happens, but usually everything lines up pretty well. So we're looking for a 16th magnitude galaxy. That could be a bit of a challenge. I'm seeing something faint down there. Here's a look ahead study, and I don't think I'll be going back to review because I don't think there were any that were too far south to not include them in tonight's 7650 plus series. This is a look ahead to NGC7711 Galaxy and Pegasus, magnitude 12.1, pure oblate, 2.6 by 1.3 arc-minute spiral, lenticular, 184 million light years distant, puts it at about 120,000 light years across. It's at plus 15 degrees. We are now at 2335-39 with this study, and let's have a look at Messier 110, maybe Messier 33, something like that to sign off on. Yeah, I would say that things have shifted towards the top of the screen after that runaway. We're looking, of course, at Messier 110, a satellite galaxy of Messier 31, the Great Andromeda Galaxy. From where I'm sitting, I can see the core region, and extensive nebulosity going off to the left and right. That's a pretty nice view, at least from my viewing angle. I'm hoping you're getting something comparable on the camera. Messier 110. One of my favorite bellwether galaxies for checking conditions, because whenever you can see that luminosity spreading out over some 8 to 10 degrees of the screen, which is 10 degrees, 8 to 10 arc minutes of a 20 arc minute screen, you're getting some pretty good sensitivity there. How about the Triangulum Galaxy too? Our last study for the evening, as the image slowly forms on the screen, is that face-on relative spiral, which is part of the local group of galaxies. I think there are about 25 galaxies in the local group. And I guess the way you would determine that they're in our same group is that they actually have a slight blue shift or a no shift whatsoever. And their distances are typically within 5 to 10 million light years of our own Milky Way galaxy. And of course the capital galaxy of our system is actually the Great Andromeda Galaxy, although there was some debate at one time about which galaxy was more massive or larger. I think it's pretty settled now. I'll have to look that up to confirm it. It's entirely possible our galaxy is more massive and more mature, but there's so much dark, cold dark matter and nebulosity in our galaxy that I would assume it's less mature than the Great Andromeda Galaxy. Well, here's another one of our neighbors, Messier 33, the Triangulum Galaxy, and with that we're going to say Carpe Noctem.